On this day in history, November 13th, English King Athelred II ordered a mass execution of Danish settlers in England during a period of intense conflict with Viking raiders on November 13, 1002. The massacre took place on St. Brice's Day and targeted Danish civilians living in English communities. Archaeological evidence of this event was discovered in 2008 when a mass grave containing 37 skeletons was found at St. John's College, Oxford, showing signs of execution-style killings. General Richard Montgomery led American Revolutionary Forces into Montreal without resistance as part of the Continental Army's invasion of Quebec on November 13, 1775. The British governor, General Guy Carleton, had abandoned the city the day before, taking his small garrison with him. Montgomery's occupation of Montreal was a significant victory for the American cause, though the broader Quebec campaign would ultimately fail. The Great Meteor Storm, also known as the Night the Stars Fell, was one of the most intense meteor showers ever recorded in human history on November 13, 1833. The Leonids meteor shower produced hundreds of thousands of meteors per hour, with some estimates suggesting rates as high as 100,000 meteors per hour. The spectacular celestial event was visible across North America and led to significant scientific study of meteor showers. James Braid witnessed a pivotal demonstration of animal magnetism by Charles LaFontaine on November 13, 1841, which sparked his interest in what he would later term hypnotism. This experience would fundamentally change Braid's understanding of the phenomenon and lead him to develop a more scientific approach. His subsequent research would establish him as the father of modern hypnotherapy. The Battle of Bull's Gap concluded in a decisive Union defeat on November 13, 1864, as Confederate forces under Major General John C. Breckinridge pursued the retreating Union Army. The pursuit stretched from Bull's Gap all the way to Strawberry Plains, Tennessee, demonstrating the effectiveness of the Confederate campaign. The three-day battle proved to be a significant victory for Confederate forces in East Tennessee. A major clash between protesters and police occurred in central London on November 13, 1887, in what became known as Bloody Sunday. The confrontation took place in Trafalgar Square when police attempted to prevent a demonstration by the Social Democratic Federation and the Irish National League. The violent suppression of the protest resulted in numerous injuries and became a significant moment in the history of British civil rights. French forces suffered their most devastating defeat in Morocco at the Battle of El Harry on November 13, 1914, at the hands of Berber tribesmen. The surprise attack caught the French column completely off guard, resulting in hundreds of casualties. This battle demonstrated the effectiveness of tribal warfare tactics against conventional military forces and marked a significant setback for French colonial control in Morocco. Allied forces took control of Constantinople on November 13, 1918, marking the end of Ottoman rule in the city. The occupation came as part of the Armistice of Mudros, which ended Ottoman participation in World War I. This historic event effectively ended centuries of Ottoman control over the city and marked a turning point in the region's history. The United States Supreme Court made a landmark decision regarding public health on November 13, 1922, in the case of Zucht versus King. The court unanimously upheld the constitutionality of mandatory vaccinations for public school students. This ruling established an important precedent for public health measures in educational settings that continues to influence policy today. The Soviet Union completed the development of the AK-47 on November 13, 1947, creating what would become one of the world's most recognizable and widely used assault rifles. The weapon, designed by Mikhail Kalashnikov, combined reliability, ease of use, and low production costs. The AK-47 would go on to become the most produced assault rifle in history, with an estimated 100 million units manufactured. Venezuela was shocked by the assassination of its president, General Carlos Delgado Chalbo, on November 13, 1950, in the streets of Caracas. The killing was carried out by a group of armed men who ambushed the president's vehicle. This tragic event marked a significant moment of political instability in Venezuelan history and led to major changes in the country's leadership. Great Britain achieved a historic victory in Paris on November 13, 1954, defeating France to win the inaugural Rugby League World Cup. The match, played before an enthusiastic crowd of approximately 30,000 spectators, demonstrated Britain's dominance in the sport. This victory established Great Britain as the first ever world champions in international rugby league competition. The Supreme Court of the United States delivered a landmark civil rights ruling on November 13, 1956, declaring Alabama's bus segregation laws unconstitutional. This historic decision effectively ended the Montgomery bus boycott, which had begun when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. The ruling represented a major victory for the civil rights movement and helped establish important legal precedents for future desegregation efforts. Israel launched a military operation against the village of Az Samu on November 13, 1966, in response to Fatah raids near the West Bank border. The attack was one of the largest Israeli military operations into the West Bank since 1956. The raid resulted in significant casualties and property damage, escalating tensions in the region. A tragic boxing match took place in Las Vegas on November 13, 1982, when Ray Mancini defended his WBA lightweight championship against South Korean challenger Duk-Koo Kim. The intense fight ended with Kim suffering severe brain injuries that would lead to his death 4 days later. The tragedy prompted several reforms in professional boxing, including reducing championship fights from 15 to 12 rounds. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial was dedicated in Washington, D.C. on November 13, 1982, following a powerful march by thousands of Vietnam War veterans. The Black Granite Wall, designed by Maya Lin, lists the names of more than 58,000 Americans who died in the conflict. This memorial has since become one of the most visited and moving tributes to military service in the United States. The Nevado del Ruiz volcano erupted on November 13, 1985, triggering a catastrophic lahar that buried the town of Armero, Colombia. The volcanic mudflow, created by melting glacier ice, swept through the town while most residents were sleeping. The disaster resulted in approximately 23,000 deaths and became one of the deadliest volcanic events in recorded history. Xavier Suarez made history on November 13, 1985, when he was sworn in as Miami's first Cuban-born mayor. His election represented a significant milestone for Miami's Cuban-American community. Suarez's victory marked a turning point in the political representation of Cuban Americans in South Florida. A tragic accident occurred during the filming of BBC's The Late Late Breakfast Show on November 13, 1986, resulting in the death of 24-year-old Michael Lush. The incident happened during a rehearsal for a dangerous stunt segment called Whirly Wheel. This led to the immediate cancellation of the show and sparked significant changes in television safety protocols. A significant mathematical discovery was made on November 13, 1996, when Joel Armengaud found the first Mersenne prime number as part of the Great Internet Mersenne Prime Search (GIMPS) project. The discovered number contained 420,921 digits, making it one of the largest known prime numbers at the time. This discovery marked an important milestone in collaborative mathematical research using distributed computing. President George W. Bush took unprecedented action on November 13, 2001, by signing an executive order authorizing military tribunals for foreign terrorism suspects. This marked the first time such tribunals had been authorized since World War II. The order granted the government extraordinary powers to prosecute suspected terrorists outside the regular civilian or military justice systems. Paris experienced its deadliest attacks since World War II on November 13, 2015, when Islamic State operatives carried out a series of coordinated terrorist attacks across the city. The attacks included suicide bombings near the Stade de France, mass shootings at cafes and restaurants, and a hostage crisis at the Bataclan Theater. The tragic events resulted in 130 deaths and hundreds of injuries, profoundly impacting France and leading to increased counterterrorism measures across Europe. Thank you most sincerely for your time and attention. If you found this presentation enlightening, I encourage you to share it with others, express your appreciation with a like, and consider subscribing for future content. I look forward to your company in the next installment.